Alright guys, so this is my support 10.5 tier list. It's a week late, I know. Basically at the start of 10.5, let's just say I had a bad run in through solo queue. I even got to the point where I started questioning myself in terms of like if I'm doing bad in solo queue, then how can I give you guys good advice necessarily? I was like one win away with a game in hand to get to master, and then I plummeted all the way down, actually down to D3 60 LP. Right now I'm back up to D1 60 LP, so but if you follow my content or be watching the stream probably for a good year now, that happens a lot though. Like I do hit masters or nearly hit masters, and then all the way back down to D3, and then back up again, and then all the way back down again. So I'm not sure exactly why that is, but I don't know. Maybe when I've lost a few games, I meme maybe too much. I don't know. Maybe when I meme hard. So yeah. So I feel a bit more confident about what's happening. This patch, what we're going to be doing, because it's a week until 10.6, we're going to be going through generally near the end of the video. We'll be talking about the changes going into 10.6, and there are noteworthy things to be mentioning in that patch that may overall decide whether or not you play some of these champions that I recommend. There are a few buffs and a few nerfs and a few changes going in place for a few of these champions, particularly in the mid to high end of the tier list as well, which I will cover at the end. So it gives you a true understanding, like if you want to spend the next week practicing these champions or not. So yeah, I'll just jump straight through it. The tier 5 I think has not changed for an extremely long time. One of the things I would maybe say here though is that the Tahm Kench has been working with something called funnel Sona. I would not recommend doing it like purely in solo queue, definitely not in low ELO as well. No offense if I call you say you're low ELO, but low ELO I would regard as like iron, bronze, silver. Don't try and do anything crazy like that in those ELOs. It will mess up. Whether you'll mess up, your partner or AD carry will mess up, or both will mess up. So don't try to do any fancy gimmicks like that. That's Tahm Kench center funnel is basically assigned for duos in high ELO. So I would not recommend that. But yeah, so Tahm Kench has been played, but I do not recommend it for the overwhelming majority of the community. So that's why it's a solid tier 5. Even as a support, he's pretty bad overall. Yeah, nothing really too much else to add. That I mean, he's okay-ish into something like Thresh, where you got a little bit of time to save your AD carry out of that situation, but overall not a very good support champion. But yeah, you know, there's usual suspects there. We can just move swiftly on. We've got tier 4 champions here now. So there's a few champions there that you might be playing yourself. A few of those champions, you know what? Screw it. We're going to talk about 10.6 as well, because there's a lot of things happening here. So I did move Soraka and Morgana down to tier 4. Both of these champions, specifically for support, are getting buffed next week. We don't quite know exactly what that's going to be, but they are definitely getting buffed for 10.6. Support has been like labeled that Soraka is getting a support buff. I highly doubt she'll ever be as good in lane as she was before all the top lane abuse, but it's impossible to tell at a very early stage where she's going to be in a week, in 3 weeks time. I don't envisage she'll ever be top tier 1, so whether or not you want to continue playing Soraka is up to you. Right now in solo queue, she's hot garbage right now. She's gone from she's lost like 4 or 5% win rate in solo queue, I believe. I think she's one of the lowest win rate support champions in the game right now. She's having a really tough time. Morgana as well. I know Morgana is a favorite for a lot of people that are playing that regard her as a safe champion in lane, particularly a blind pick, but overall she isn't that great. The only matchup she kind of works well with is a Caitlyn with the trap binding combinations, but Caitlyn isn't, she's picked okay in amount, but she's not top tier pick at the moment. And B, like working with your AD carry like that, particularly if you're like gold or under, is difficult. And Morgana in most situations is generally pretty bad anyway. So yeah, so tier 4 right now, but they are getting buffed. Maybe tier 3 next patch. We'll have to check the notes when they come out for 10.6. But in 10.5, the patch room right now, Soraka and Morgana are basically champions you shouldn't be playing right now. Vel'Koz, I've moved down to tier 4. Mages in general right now are not doing too great. So the main mages that we usually talk about are Zyra, Xerath, and Vel'Koz, Brand. They're generally not doing too great in solo queue right now. Last season, Zyra in particular was like outstanding, but yeah, generally all the mages have come down a notch. So Vel'Koz has been moved down as well. Shaco support not played frequently. Rakan as well. I've seen a few more Zyra Rakan combinations, and honestly, they've all done pretty badly. Do not recommend Rakan at all. Even with Zyra, I don't see the point. Zyra is still too weak right now compared to things like Aphelios. But saying that, like Aphelios and I think there's another AD carry that's getting nerfed in 10.6. So you know, Rakan might go up slightly because, you know, the Zyra will be technically stronger because the top AD carriers are becoming weaker. So there might be some, you know, little bit of movement there next patch. But right now, solid tier 4. A couple of champions. Veigar, I know I wasn't going to talk about 10.6 too much, but Veigar is actually apparently getting a buff next patch as well. We have no idea what that patch is going to give him right now, but yeah, Veigar's getting a buff. He could be moved up a little bit in this tier list again as well. But right now, yeah, in 10.5, just tier 4 right now. Yeah, just nothing else really to take note of there. A lot of those champions have been tier 4 for quite some time, but the ones I've highlighted are probably the most frequently played. And that Braum as well. Braum's never really recovered since the passive bug fix, and they haven't done anything to address it. I think mainly because of pro play. So if you missed that, the bug fix on Braum in, I believe it was 10.3, where his passive no longer used to affect tenacity. It'd be affected by tenacity, but now it does. So, you know, his stun duration will go down as people buy moat treads and things like that as well. So, yeah. Apparently, I've been told in chat, we're doing this in live right now. Eve says Q damage plus 10. Okay, so if it is a base 10 damage from level 1, then it will need some playtesting. Q damage plus 10 will give you a little bit more harassing lane. Probably won't be overall like that game changing. But I guess if you're playing like mid Veigar, it would help you last hit, you know, the starting CS a little bit more. So we'll see. Going on to tier 3 now. There's one or two things. Yeah, there's two things I want to mention here. The Yuumi and the Pike. 3 things, and the Xerath are major keynotes. The minor keynote is Alistar. So Yuumi is good and bad. Like, she is good and bad. How can we? It's really hard to pinpoint how to explain her, but she has really good heals. She gets countered quite easily though by Grievous wounds. Harassment in lane can be absolutely devastating. But if your AD carry gets caught out, then both of you will die. So I would not necessarily recommend Yuumi for if you're under gold, because your AD carry is more likely to miss position more, which means that you will also die, which then enables the enemy bot lane to snowball more. However, if you come out of laning phase decently, and then you can then use your Yuumi to, if your jungler is also doing okay, then she can do a really good job escalating the snowball though. Very similar to Pike, but Pike is more extreme. A laning phase is rough, but if you pop off on Pike, then you can solo carry. Pike's been seeing increased amount of gameplay in 10.5, I've noticed. After really not being played too much, I'm not sure the specific reasons for that. But Pike, you know, has always been a really good pop-off champion, especially when you land your ultis, but he is extremely fragile during that laning phase. So it's if you like gambling, those two champions are pretty, you know, you win or you lose. Just like every game really, you win or you lose, but those ones are like, you will make or break it via laning phase, and if you fall behind the laning phase on either of those champions, you have very little chance of coming back into the game. Like for example on Pike, if you're falling behind, you will die on roams more often. You won't be able to land your ultis as well because the execute range will be lower. So there's even like less chance you'll be able to get the gold execute portion of it as well. And it snowballs backwards, the opposite way of a snowball. I'm not too sure what that is, but yeah, it gets worse and worse and worse as you're falling further and further behind. Zyra is getting a buff next patch. I personally particularly like playing Zyra. I think he's a pretty good mage. He's probably the best mage against other mage supports, but as stated before, mage supports are generally just doing pretty badly right now, but he is getting a buff in 10.6. So keep an eye on that one. I don't know the specifics on that one either, but we'll know more as it gets closer towards the patch and we'll get more like concrete, detailed information about what that is. But one to keep your eye on, particularly if you like playing Zyra. Lux, Karma, Thresh, just they've kind of been tier 3 for quite a long time. I don't feel like the Q change was enough on Lux. The recent Q change where they reduced the cooldown of her Q on the lower levels by, I think it was 2 seconds, didn't really do anything for her. Probably like little scrape extra win ratio there, but overall I don't feel like she's necessarily worth playing in solo queue right now. I know Karma's a popular pick within a lot of people in the community, but like laning phase, like early is good, but like after that I feel like she's absolutely terrible. I think there's way better like enchanters. She's just too much like she's too much of nothing. Like she's a little bit of an enchanter, she's a little bit of a mage, but she kind of like fails at both. Like mid game, her damage is very poor, honestly, as support, and the support portion of her is pretty poor as well. So just it's too spread out where her power is. I personally don't like it, and honestly, the play rate kind of also reflects that as well. I think with most of the community, don't really recommend her right now. Thresh is a good option if you've got a jungler as your duo. Otherwise, good luck getting people to click your lanterns, particularly if you're gold below. Even if you catch people out with your hook and your flay, it still generally like puts you in a bad situation in trades. It can sometimes work out, but overall there are better engaged champions to play. Zillion, I remember doing a tweet about him. His ulti was bugged the first couple of days, where his ultimate, the revive, if you were to revive via a Zillion ult, you weren't allowed to use flash for 3 seconds. They've now fixed that, so just a little update if anyone like read that information and didn't hear an update. So Zillion did receive a bug fix, so good news if you play Zillion in that regard, but overall Zillion, I don't really regard as that great. I think in some hyper carry situations it can work, and if the game goes really, really long, then he late game, it can be game changing, the revive and the speed up, but as a whole, I think there are just better champions out there. Brand as well, with the mage situation, he's still one of the weaker mages, probably the second weakest mage. I'll probably put like Vel'Koz at the bottom of the ones that I recommend, and then Brand. So yeah, it's okay but not great. He's actually going to get a jungle buff, actually I just remembered, in 10.6 as well, so they want Zyra and Brand to be able to jungle more often, so who knows, maybe next match you'll be playing Brand jungle. Alistar received a buff this patch, but it was an okay buff, but it was probably enough to drag him out from like tier 4 to tier 3, but I would still not recommend. There was, as you'll see in a second, there's some engaged champions that I would prefer you to play in your solo queue games if you're allowed to get them, if they're not banned. So in tier 2, we've got Taric, Bard, Lulu, Janna, Blitzcrank, Zyra, Swain, Nautilus. I had a tough time placing Swain and Nautilus. We'll go through those at the end. First I'll start with Taric. Taric win rate in solo queue right now is solid. If you like the idea of playing Taric, or if you like Taric, he is playable for sure. Would recommend more with a burst AD carry though, with like a Lucian, someone that can go in and set up the stun properly. It can work nicely. Just the timing on ultis is going to be your biggest thing for a lot of the game, so factor that in. Bard, this patch in 10.5 received a nerf on his chimes. Overall, I don't feel like it did like a mass. It did knock him. He was originally the highest win rate champion in solo queue with the Dead Man's Plate Rapid Fire Cannon build. It did knock his win rate down about 1%. He's still pretty good. I just wouldn't recommend him like over a couple of other champions in tier 1, but he is still, you know, it does depend on how good you are. It really does depend whether you are good on him. Like he's one of the highest mechanical skill champions. Everyone knows like a Bard ult can make and break the team fight. So it's largely depending on how good you are. But Bard is in a good position right now. Lulu is a champion that does extremely well, as always, with Vayne, Cogmore, hyper carries. Kaiser received a buff this patch as well, so she works pretty well with Kaiser now once she gets that Q augment through. She works generally well with most AD carries, just more like with Twitch as well. Like those kind of hyper carry champions that pop off with Ardent Senza, like level 11 kind of onwards. So yeah, so Lulu is in a good position right now. But I wouldn't recommend her playing her with like a CG AD carry. That's when her power drops off quite considerably. So depending on how much power you can get with EUW, that also includes playing against like an assassin mage mid lane. So if you're against something like a Castadin and he hasn't got Merc Treads, the polymorph does a really good job shutting him down. Same with something like Cat as well. So you know you got to balance between who you're doing Whimsy or polymorph for, but yeah, she's in a really solid spot right now. I feel like the 2-second shield, I think it was 2 patches ago, I think it was 10.3, she received a 2-second base reduction on her E, and honestly in my Sudoku games I've definitely noticed that like the shield just coming back up has been clutch in a few situations, and I feel like that's been enough to give her that solid tier 2. Janna, she's always generally been in a good position in solo queue. If you are worried about specific junglers, she can do a really good job at making sure that the Fiesta bot lane is kept to a minimum. Zac, is like in certain champions like Zac, she can do a really good job. As long as you're paying attention with your Q, she can prevent the Zac from coming in. And like multiple other champions similar to Zac with those type of engages, she can do a really good job at preventing engages. Yeah, she's Janna. You know, everyone knows who she is, so she's just always just going to be like she's always bounced around between tier 1 and tier 2. But right now she's a solid tier 2. If you like playing Janna, then go for it. You just won't be seeing me playing her too much still though. Blitzcrank tier 2. I've been permabamming Blitzcrank. Mainly because I'm scared that my AD carries in particular are going to get hooked. Blitzcrank is a champion where it is champion selection. Like, you can't first pick Blitzcrank because the enemy will take a tank support or will take something like Sivir or an Ezreal and make it your life much more difficult in ensuring those hooks. But if you know what you're going against, say if you're going against an Enchanter or like you're going against a very like low mobile AD carry, like something like, I mean, Kaiser and Misfortune are quite like high mobile, but they have no dashes, so still potential grab there. But you know those type of champions where like just trying to think, come on Bizzle, Varus, just like a Varus, also extremely easy matchup for Blitzcrank, very easy hook potential there. Someone mentioned Jinx. Yeah, Jinx works. Yeah, Blitzcrank does a really good job against that. So he does really well against enchanters, the low mobile AD carries, even the AD carries that have high movement speed, but don't have a dash. He does particularly well. It ends up being maybe a bit 50-50 those hooks in those situations, but she does really well. Yeah, into Sona. Senna. We'll talk about more about her in a minute. You can already guess where she is, but we'll talk about more. But yeah, he does a good job into Senna for sure. Zyra is, I'm going to say right now, is the highest mage on this tier list. Tier 2, as mentioned before, they're looking to make it so that she can jungle more often. I don't see that happening in high yellow still, but they're going to increase, I believe, the plant damage on the jungle camps. We'll see how that goes. So we might see some more play rate of her a little bit in solo queue in the jungle. I think Zyra brings a lot of utility. Damage is okay, just it's not as where it used to be. As well as things like the Spell Thieves nerfs that came in. We didn't touch on those, but the Moby Boots gold increase. affected a lot of the supports in this tier list as well, and the Spell Thieves nerf as well. So if you're not familiar with those nerfs, the Moby Boots got increased by 100 gold, and the Spell Thieves means that you have to be next to someone in order to generate that gold. So if you're playing someone like a mage, again, there's like another it hits mages more than anyone else on this tier list. So if you find out you're in a situation where your AD carry died, but you killed their bot lane, you're not going to be generating any extra gold on that Spell Thieves, unfortunately. Even if if you're really, really close to that 500 gold mark to get those 3 wards, you're not going to get it. There were a lot of situations, about 20% of the games, I'd say, where that kind of situation does happen, and you're losing about 60 gold and potential 3 wards in your inventory for your next recall because of this nerf. And it kind of hits mages the more because they're usually like the ones that are potentially like the highest chance of being last standing, killing off the other 2 as your AD carry is dying. So yeah, mages are just in a tough spot right now. 2 champions here, the Swain and the Nautilus, as I said, I had a tough time placing. Win ratios for them in solo queue right now aren't particularly great, but I feel like they're not particularly hard champions to play. Swain in particular is extremely cheesy in terms of a lot of people still don't know how to play against him. You have... If the enemy has no idea how to play against Swain, honestly, the lane is basically a free win as long as you're familiar with how Swain's E works. I still think he's an incredibly powerful champion. I did say months ago, though, as Swain's support gets more and more popular, more people will know how to play against him. So his effective power will eventually go down. We're starting to see the effect of that now. In a patch or 2 time, we could see Swain dipping into tier 3. Right now, he's still worth playing. The burst damage in lane is definitely noticeable. Overall, though, yeah, his power is definitely dipping for sure from when I first started playing him 2 months ago at the start of the season. So still incredibly good for cheesy, probably really good gold below. Once you start getting to Platinum Diamond, though, you're gonna come across more people that aren't stupid or just more familiar with the champion. So yeah, just factor that in. Nautilus, he's an annoying champion. His win rate is going down. He is getting nerfed, to be honest, fairly frequently these days. So I don't think they'll nerf him again because his win ratio is getting quite low. But he is just about annoying enough, and you can make enough picks off with your AD carry to make something work. You won't do all the damage by yourself, but if you've got like a burst AD carry or an AD carry that's doing particularly well, you'll still make some easy catches and stuff. It's when it gets to like mid game onwards is where Nautilus really struggles, but you can pop off on that laning phase with Nautilus potentially and do a crazy snowball. So going into tier 1, I know, what a 180 if you're looking at the Sona pick right there as well. Sona pick right up there. I don't think many people were expecting that when I first originally made a tier list. Okay, so I'm going to leave Sona to the end, and I'm going to explain the reasons why. I would not be surprised to see Sona nerf very soon, though. Not the next patch, but the next patch after. But we'll go into great detail after we cover the other 3, because they're worth talking about still. Nami has the highest win rate in solo queue now that Bard got nerfed. Nami is a very good champion in solo queue. She is likely to get nerfed. The last thing that Riot did to her was buff her E, so that it now affected spells. Now that was a while ago. Her win ratio since then has been pretty high. She, with Athene's Unholy Grail as your first starting item, she does insane heals. She always has done. And I feel like we're getting very close to the situation where the Nami nerfs are coming. It's not next patch. It might not be the patch after that, but I just feel like they're going to be coming very soon. I feel like she's extremely strong, especially with, the mages generally falling behind a little bit. Some of the tanks getting nerfed. She's becoming, the kind of standout sort of champion out here. And with, we'll briefly mention Sannen is getting a nerf in 10.6. So Nami Like Senna generally does pretty well against the enchanters, so that means that Nami's going to be even stronger going into the next patch onwards. So keep an eye on that one. Enjoy Nami right now if you enjoy playing her, but it's I feel like it's coming soon. So get ready for that one. Leona, strongest tank support in the game. You know, low cooldowns, lots of CC. You can throw out your ulti and you can choose not to go in, and then in a minute's time the ulti's back up. We could probably see enough on Leona potentially again as well, or maybe on her ult cooldown. Nothing's been announced as of yet, but I feel like that could potentially come in as well, because it's not that fun to play against, especially when she starts hitting 3 onwards, and then 6 is really devastating, and with the options to roam and things. Leona did receive a slight nerf, as most champions did in regards because of the Moby Boots nerf, but the 100 gold was not enough to offset this at all. So yeah, Leona is definitely the standout tank to play in solo queue right now. Senna is getting a nerf. So there's been multiple iterations of Senna. Originally she was planned as support. The community said no, let's play her as AD carry. She's now receiving, like, she's being played more these days, at least in high elo, as AD carry than as support. About 75% of the game Senna's in, she's usually like AD carry. The latest iteration of Senna is I do in quotations like, I can't remember the funnel Senna. I know they've given it an actual name. I can't remember. I'm sure someone in chat can remind me what they've actually like named it. But the funnel Senna build, where you go, as I mentioned with the Tahm Kench earlier, you go to like Tahm Kench and then you play Senna. But in solo queue, you're not gonna really see that if you're gold or under. Fasting Senna, thank you. Yeah, that's what it's called. She is incredibly strong. The next patch, I believe, is going to be, so instead of every soul giving 180, it's going down to 0.8, which is a 20% nerf. So with there only being one more week in solo queue, yeah, you could abuse Senna a little bit, while she does really well against those enchanters and the mages. Generally better against the enchanters, though, that are getting played, like the Nami, the Sona, the Janna, the Lulu. She does incredibly well against that. But expect that to do a lot of damage, like in terms of like her win rate, for sure. Absolutely. That soul ratio going down is huge. So we'll see whether that actually leads. I'd imagine still should be incredibly good in that tier 2 area. I would have liked it if they would have nerfed her heal maybe a bit. But her heal is still going to be pretty strong. So we'll see where she is after that, but yeah, it's going to be a big nerf, so just give you a heads up. But right now, yeah, she's incredibly strong. Now Sona, the one that most of you guys are a bit confused by. So as you will probably see if you were on stream, I've been playing a fair amount of Sona recently. I have also on YouTube got a 1 hour 10-minute Sona video of 2 builds coming out very soon, if they're not out already, which is a Guardian and an Airy build. So you go Guardian against tanks and you go Airy against everyone else. Secondaries on both of them are free boots and Cosmic Insight, and the build is Rush, Tear, Archangels, and then go Athenes and Holy Grail, maybe whack in a Dark Seal somewhere in that as well for stacks. That is like the absolute core build of Sona. Now, why have I changed my opinion a little bit on Sona? Well, there's a couple of reasons. My playstyle for Sona is kind of the same as why I don't like playing Janna. Laning phase is frustrating. Sona sucks until you hit 6, and even when you hit 6, it's still kind of bad, and then when you hit 11, that is where you will start seeing why I am recommending Sona. Like level 11 Sona onwards is legit disgusting. So laning phase is difficult for sure. Play safe, play smart, don't do anything too aggressive. Your main like thing is just to stay alive and try not to burn through too much mana early, because even when you first buy that tier, you will go still quite easily until that's stacked up to around about 300, like halfway ish. then the mana issues will slowly start to disappear. So once you hit level 11, the cooldowns on your QWE go down vastly. You'll have your heal max then by then as well. Hopefully your Archangel stuff will be nearly at completion as well, so it'll give you another shield protection, which you definitely need on her, as you know, she's incredibly squishy. So the overall power that she gives in a team fight, it is absurd. Especially the longer the team fight goes on, Sona pops off even more so, just with the incredible amount of shielding and healing specifically, not including the extra movement speed, which you can't put a value on. It's like kind of almost invaluable. And then the Q does provide your team with extra bit of damage there as well. And crescendo, you know, if you can get into position for crescendo late game, it is pretty difficult to do that though without flash, but it is possible. But yeah, I feel like she's in a really good position right now. She did get a revert buff this patch in 10.5. So they did originally nerf her because of Sona top lane. Sona top lane is basically not viable now. But they, in response to that, reverted some of the movement speed changes that they did on her E. So now she moves pretty fast again. So as long as you can play lane calmly, patiently, you know, it's all about getting to that like level 10 with the transcendence and then level 11 with the extra cooldown on your QWE. It works incredibly nicely. Just get through that laning phase. Get through that laning phase and then you're smooth sailing until then. What I will specifically say though, if you're in gold or under, you're gonna see Sona work much easier than for someone in diamond. It is very difficult to play Sona in diamond solo queue in that laning phase, but in lower elo, in gold under, positional mistakes will get punished less frequently, so you'll get away. Obviously, try not to miss position, but you'll get away with making bad missteps and things like that more often. So yeah, just play smart. So hopefully you guys, you know, can benefit from this tier list. I do apologize again that this is a week later than ideally I would have liked to. Hopefully my explanation makes sense. And for the next tier list for 10.6, I'll try and getting this one out a little bit quicker. I know there's plenty of people in chat wanting to ask me questions, and I'll get to you guys in a second. But this will be on YouTube, and if you guys have any questions on YouTube, do let me know, and I'll try my best to answer them. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the tier list. Hope it helps you out, and don't be scared to get in contact if you do have any specific questions about, you know, a couple of these champions. And don't be too offended if your favorite champion's not higher up on the tier list. This is all my opinion. I'll say that again. This is my opinion of what is good in solo queue. This is what I recommend. Generally, I feel like I'm 95% correct on my tier list. There's been one or two champions where I would have, on hindsight, I would have like maybe moved like down or up one tier. But I generally feel like I'm pretty consistent in giving, you know, reliable advice, and you know, that's another reason like why I delayed this tier list by a week. So just to make sure to give you guys the correct information. So yeah. All right.